In today's video, I wanted to talk about trust. Now, the idea for this video came about while I was reading some books, prepping for the next book review. I had a couple that I liked, but I found that while I was reading the books, there was this reoccurring theme that I kept seeing over and over again, and that theme was trust. So I figured it might be interesting to just lump all those takeaways together and come up with a video essay on it. So today we'll talk about why is trust important and what do we do about it in today's context. To start off, let's talk about trust as it applies to money. In the book Money, Banking, and Financial Markets, an Introduction to Macroeconomics by Sandeep Mazumdar and Dale K. Klein, they talk about money, among other things, and how our money in the United States is a fiat currency. A fiat currency is a currency that you can't exchange for gold or silver, but one that's based on the trust of its citizens in the system. So obviously, trust is at the very foundation of our monetary system in the United States. But more than that, you need trust to be able to lend money out to individuals, to create businesses and products that require initial investment. Trust is at the very crux of how we're able to accomplish things in the United States. But the impact of trust, it doesn't end there. In the book Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell took the example of an interaction between Sandra Bland, a motorist, and Brian Encino, a police officer in West Texas, and how through a number of events it escalated from a violation of a very, very minor sort into an arrest and eventually the death of Sandra Bland. The book was largely a research paper on how we can do better at policing as the United States. But the takeaway I took away from the book mostly has to do with trust. As Malcolm Gladwell broke down the steps that might have led to that dramatic encounter, I had a couple things that were brewing in the back of my mind. The first was, in the US, a lot of people are mistrustful of police and civilian interactions. That's been especially the case in recent years, as a lot of media has really inflamed the battle between the two. Rather than seeking to find peace and help unify the two parties, there's been a lot of dramatic stories to really build up that divisiveness. You throw that into the mix on the side of Sandra Bland. On the side of Brian Encino, about the time that he was making this arrest that led to what it led to, a lot of agencies in the United States had adopted an aggressive policing structure. This structure was created by a police agency in Kansas City, Missouri, who had figured out a way to reduce the number of violent crimes in their city by being proactive in their policing. But as Malcolm Gladwell pointed out, the basis of the aggressive policing was on creating an environment where police officers were trained to be mistrustful. That is to say, they were trained to look at environments and situations that looked suspicious and be mistrusting of things that didn't seem right. So returning to our story, Sandra Bland was driving her own vehicle in West Texas. She'd only been there a couple days. It looked a bit off to Brian. So Brian pulled Sandra over for a very, very minor traffic infraction of moving to the side of the road without using her blinker. And Sandra was just trying to get out of the way. And through their later interactions, both sides being mistrustful of the other, things escalated very quickly. And on the one side, I understand. There's a lot of instances and reasons why we are untrustful of certain situations. There are a lot of scammers out there when it comes to money and finances, and there are a lot of people that break our hearts and we break other people's hearts. So there's a lot of mistrust circulating in our world today. It's no surprise that we do have instances of mistrust. But I don't think that just because we have been hurt, or there have been people who have been hurt in the past, that we should abandon trust altogether. I think if anything, this shows that just how valuable trust is and how much we need to preserve it. Trust is one of those things that takes years to develop and mere instants to break. So what do we do with trust in our modern world? In the real estate world, we teach buyers to be cautious when their offer to buy a particular home goes under contract, because a lot of times there are scammers waiting in the wings to send them fraudulent emails where that money will be wired and then wired offshore and then disappear, never to be seen again. We teach people to be cautious of that and to seek out the title company or the person who's going to be handling the earnest money directly over the phone or in person. This isn't to say that we shouldn't trust people, but to be cautious and prudent and wise about where and when and how we trust. When it comes to relationships, I think we can rely on our experience with others. As we spend more time with one another, or as we have friends that we trust through spending time with them, that may accelerate the speed at which we can trust a new friend or a new acquaintance. And when it comes to YouTube, trust has been especially skewed because you do see the same people over and over again through videos, and it is a good place to establish trust. But a lot of people have used that to their advantage and taken advantage of trusting people, often scamming people out of a bunch of money. In all these things, I think trust is a case-by-case basis. And I think that we ought to be willing to trust, but wise in the way that we do trust. But above all, I think it's valuable, and I think it's something that we should continue as we move into the future. With that said, that's the end of the video. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe down below, and I will see you in the next video.